Welcome to another episode of the Nova SBE Futurecast. Today we are going to talk about business and space. My name is Miguel Cunha and I'm a professor at Nova SBE. And it's my pleasure to announce that today we have with us Emir Sirage, our good friend, program director of the Space for Business program, and a member of the Center of Engineering at SEIA. Emir, you know that at Nova we are starting to engage in our exploration of space, in this case, Space for Business. It's a new area for us. It's an area that we find very exciting. And we are already developing a number of initiatives, namely in terms of executive education, advanced training in the field. We are starting some academic research on the new space for business. We are preparing our first case studies, and in this sense, it's a new and very exciting topic. And I cannot imagine a better qualified person than Emir to tell us something about this new field. So, Emir, how would you describe for our audience this new field of space for business, new space? What is this? And a very important sub-question. I think we tend to think about space as something that is important for engineers, experts in physics or astronomy, but I think that in the field of management, business, economics, we also need to pay attention to space. Am I correct?
Yes. Hello. Good afternoon, Miguel. It's always a pleasure to be with you. You are also a pioneer at Nova addressing this topic of space economy. Coming to your first question, so space as a sector has evolved during many stages. I think in the beginning, when we were thinking about exploring the moon as let's say, humans went to the moon, there was a political and geopolitical context of exploring space, So, and this, I would say, it was a big first phase of this domination in terms of geopolitics.
Yeah.
Then we could see that there is a second phase where space as a sector is more diversified, and many other countries in the world, not the main ones like the US and other nations exploring space. Many other countries could access the space sector, having national space agencies.
Yeah.
But this second phase was always funded by governments, so public funding, so that this public funding could go to the industry and to go to science to fund space activities. I would say these are the two big phases. What is happening nowadays, and I would say in the last, more significantly, in the last 5 years, we are seeing more the private sector investing in space companies. And this is creating a new economy that is much more driven by market opportunities and business opportunities than national space programs. That many times these national space programs are driven by scientific missions, correct? Mm-hmm. So this new space or era, or that is more driven to the market, is seeing space as a sector of a new business opportunity. So I would say that we discussed this, you and myself. We now see that there is a lot of new companies that when they enter in this space economy, mm-hmm. they are not just expecting that the government will give them some funding for them to develop their product or their service or their space technology. Yeah. They are seeing it. It's a business opportunity. We're going to develop space technology to address a specific market need. I'm going to just give you a very interesting example. Yesterday, we had here a nice conference I think is still continuing today, where we addressed many activities in the space sector. And I had the opportunity to moderate a panel where we were trying to understand, so what is space, bringing value to other businesses. And it was interesting because there were two companies that were funded, and the persons representing the companies, one was an archaeologist, and the other one was a plant biologist. So it's interesting to see that they are not, I would say, addressing to the sub-question you made. They are not aerospace engineers and they were not physicists. Yeah. They were just two areas where they are working in a space company that are addressing other markets that need space infrastructure and data to develop a business opportunity. One of the companies was in the agriculture sector. The other company was to monitor critical infrastructures like bridges and roads and so on.
No, I think it was very clear, and it's interesting that people coming from disciplines that apparently have nothing to do with space, these examples actually show that things are changing. And I think that for our audience, if we think about new space or the space for business, of course the name of SpaceX will come to mind because it's a very well-known company. But again, your examples show that it's not only something for Elon Musk or aerospace engineers, but can you please illustrate some of the activities that these organizations typically do with these new space technologies? You have mentioned critical infrastructure, for example, agriculture, but for example, for a company in agriculture, what kind of uses can we have?
Yeah, before we go there, and you mentioned about SpaceX, and it's important to say that the new space concept, or let's say buzzword, and that now we are living worldwide, started a lot in the US, because of course there is also a lot of capital, available funding in the US to fund, let's say, entrepreneurship. And I think this is not only in space, but in many other sectors. Many companies that are coming from Europe or other geographies usually go to the US to raise more capital because there's a lot of funding. And it's clear because the US also, as we all know, has a strong space program. Also, it has a strong ecosystem around space and I would say a strong value chain. In any sector there is a value chain, and they're very strong. Regarding SpaceX and other companies like Blue Origin, an example from Jeff Bezos, or Virgin Orbit from the name Richard Branson. They are, of course, billionaires that also they have a fascination from space, and this is important to say that this new space also is a very risky business. And many of the big investment that there is because there is a kind of connection between the ones that are investing with this space exploration. So you understand? So yeah. Like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Virgin Orbit, they were pioneers in also democratizing, that space is also a potential business. And one important thing to say is that these companies and SpaceX is really changing the paradigm, because they are making space accessible to everyone, because they are reducing a lot the costs, because they are creating big launchers and reducing the costs of putting a satellite orbiting. And of course, this is changing a lot the opportunities of companies, new space companies, to say, okay, I can manufacture a satellite with at a lower cost, and then I can launch the satellite. So Today and in the next 10 years, the cost of building a satellite and then launching it will be very, very low. So the barriers of entering in the space sector will be very low. And this will enable many new opportunities that we are seeing already now. You mentioned about the agriculture sector. Coming back to example I said of the companies I met yesterday, the company that was working in agriculture sector, they are not interested in the satellite that are putting up there to observe Earth. Of course, they are interested in the capacity the satellite has, the type of sensor that the satellite has, but they are interested in the data that the satellite gives. And this data for a farmer, let's say someone that is working in the wine industry, to understand how is the soil conditions, to understand when they can harvest, to understand how climate change is affecting their culture, to have some prediction, along the year, maybe how is going to be the evolution of that area that covers the farm. So this is the type of data that comes from satellite that really can help the farmers to have a better product, a better wine in the end of the day, you see? Of course, there are other technologies, and one important thing is that we have to think that the satellite data is not the only source of data for this type of solutions to the wine industry or other industries. Is a complement, an important complement of data to again be an added value information for a better product or service of that end user. So I would say that this is the type of example where space is contributing in the agriculture sector. On critical infrastructures, and also this was mentioned, is also in the same way, is really how the data is bringing to specific areas that are critical to understand. Imagine if there is an extreme event, how that area was affected, if it's an area that has an infrastructure of energy, how that infrastructure was affected by an extreme event, a weather event, as an example. To say what? So today, and the evolution of the space economy is that as the costs are getting lower and lower to build a satellite, to launch it, to put the satellite there flying in space, means that more and more this will be commoditized, and what will be important is that this space infrastructure will give very important data for many industry, agriculture, critical infrastructures, understanding the effects of climate change. And there are a lot of satellites already providing data on land, on ocean, that really helps the scientists to have better models to predict the weather, understanding the pollution in the ocean. So there is really a lot of opportunities that space data and what the satellites do for improving the life here on Earth. Of course,
in other words, it will be impossible to tackle sustainability issues without somehow using these new technologies.
We discussed this in an article that we were writing recently. If I'm not mistaken, within the 17 SDGs, we have 169 or objectives to evaluate the SDGs, how they are being implemented. And what is interesting is that there is a very good study from the United Nations saying that at least half of these targets you need space infrastructure to accomplish them.
Yeah.
So I'd say this somehow that space data is really I would say fundamental for addressing all the issues and challenges we have regarding climate change, and understanding how the planet really is evolving regarding this, and predict what could be the effects of climate change in many regions. So,
yep.
yeah.
Thank you, Emir. You have mentioned the US as a market in which there is a legacy, there is money or capital, there is scientific knowledge. But can you just give us a flavor of what's happening in Europe, some specific forms of expertise that we have, and maybe something here in Portugal? We are speaking from Lisbon. What's happening around us?
Regarding the opportunities in new space economy, there are a lot of companies emerging. One of the and I didn't mention this. We have NASA in the US. We have in Europe the European Space Agency, and in Portugal we have a Portugal Space Agency. So in Europe, many of the European countries have a space agency that then manages what is the strategy and supports all the ecosystem, the space ecosystem, being it companies, being it science, so that the sector continues to evolve. In a more European perspective, the European Space Agency, and I'm not talking on behalf of them, I'm just saying what I know, is that they also are, let's say, incentivizing a lot the visibility of commercialization and what the importance of how space is really giving new opportunities, new business opportunities within the European context. And I would say the numbers today, ESA has a very known initiative called the Business Incubation Centers Network. And I think there are around 1,500 companies or close to that today are needing to access space data, as the companies we met yesterday in agriculture, working in agriculture, working in critical infrastructures, using this space data or having access to space assets for their business. And this is quite astonishing because you have here again new companies contributing to this new space economy. Government initiatives, because also there is the European Union Space Agency also that is doing a lot of activities regarding the Copernicus program, where it's free space data, to be used from several satellites, and they have initiatives to stimulate the use of that data to develop value-added products, so that to stimulate the market, they call the market uptake of this data. So there are a lot of initiatives. But what is interesting, if we compare it with the US, at least in my perspective, is that also you start to having a very robust venture capital context in Europe. And allow me to say this, here at Nova we are working on a program, it's called Space for Business. We have a module regarding this program where we really address the importance of business models. Also, we are seeing the financials for this context of the new space economy. What's the private funding, the venture capital? How is this working? How is this evolving in Europe? We are also here addressing the questions about what is the sustainability in space, because we are launching and we will be launching so many satellites. So on the venture capital part, it's interesting because we are already having an ecosystem of private funding to these new space companies and new space economy. So, and here at Nova, I think we have still a lot to explore.
We have been playing the game.
Yeah, we are in the game, yeah.
So thank you, Emir. And one last question. This is called the Nova SBE Futurecast. So how do you anticipate the future of the new space? I think that we have been talking about the future all the time, but if we look at the future of the future, what would you say that are predictable developments in the sector?
Yeah, let's talk about the future. Of course, we could go on and on this conversation. we are looking a lot, what I said, from having satellites, looking from space to Earth, and we talked about, space data for certain sectors is within the domain of Earth observation. But we have also the domain of navigation, If you want to use a Uber or something, you need a satellite, So this is an indirect, let's say, contribution for the application and for you to see your positioning. But also you have telecommunications. And we see that some companies now are having, it's called mega constellations to have telecommunications, so satellites that will give you internet anywhere, everywhere, and this will come. So, but this is a lot from space to Earth, and this is called in the jargon of space the downstream applications, downstream sector. But we have the upstream, so exploration of space, the looking at the future. So, and exploration of space is for us to have a more recurrent settlement in low Earth orbit. Where are all these satellites? We already have there an International Space Station, as we know. And it's a very successful international collaboration project. But then the future is beyond that. The future is going now, and this will happen in 2024, going to the moon again. So there is, it's known, a mission to the moon, a crewed mission to the moon. And what this will impact. So if we think about low Earth orbit, and we had the opportunity here at Nova recently to receive one interesting company that will develop, and is doing that, a private space station. So it's interesting because the founders of this company were the technical team that developed the first modules for the ISS from the NASA side. So they are developing this private space station, but from a business perspective. So what type of business models they will do? Maybe to reveal one of the areas that they mention, at least one of opportunity. The filming industry, Hollywood, is interesting to have a place there and maybe do some filming. So it's quite interesting, more than thinking, we're going to have a private station and maybe we'll have an hotel there, correct? There are some ideas around that you could stay there during a few days. Maybe it's more easy that we'll have some Hollywood folks there, doing some filming and then coming back. So, and this changes a lot in the future because you could be an astronaut. I could be, because they told us that they could do a training in more or less half a year, and then you are ready to, to go up to space and be there. So this is the future, going to the moon. If we think that the moon will be a gateway to humans to explore space, because this is the big vision, then it's interesting to see we're gonna have astronauts there in the moon, correct? So they have some needs, correct? They want to drink coffee in the morning, correct? So will the coffee industry supply, So this is or a specific type of food materials. Maybe you want to have 3D printing being done there using resources in the moon, certain tools that you don't need to, because it costs also to transport from Earth to there. So this is the type of new and there are many. I'm just
we could go on like doing research for the pharma industry in different conditions,
in microgravity, in different.
Sure.
Just last point, and I would say that interesting. Even the professions, correct? We need different skills, correct? It's not that you need only aerospace engineer or engineering background to be in, let's say, a lunar infrastructure. You will need a civil engineer. You'll need a doctor. So we could think about a team in the end that really then is building up this infrastructure that will be grown, that will be then the gateway for going
for
refueling the
Yeah.
spaceship for going to other destinations.
Emir, thank you very
As a
much.
future.
I think we have to stop here. Let me just remind you that Emir just let us know that Emir can be an astronaut, I can be an astronaut, and you can be an astronaut. That's the future. And that was our Futurecast. So welcome to the new space economy. Welcome to Nova SBE.